appreciate it very much. As Carl was mentioning, we represent the interstate natural gas transmission pipeline companies. The intrastates are represented by the EPGA and AGA. Christina's down in the audience there. There's a lot of little jargon out here of where everything fits, but we primarily are the interstate pipelines. The challenge that Carl gave the group was, are the practices that were found at PG&E or what they found in there, is that common throughout the industry or what's going on? And I took a little bit different tact on this to present the problem, because I know we're not necessarily going to answer the question for you, but we're going to be providing information for you so you can answer the question yourself. The key thing to remember is that pipeline safety has been around for a very, very long time. Yes, regulations were originally established nationally in 1970, but there was an awful lot of engineering codes and standards that went into effect throughout the years starting in 1928 as these pipelines were built. And we've constantly improved throughout the years in putting some of those things together. And the question is, when you do move to that continuum and how we're going, these are some of the questions that you should be asking of everybody in the audience on what's going on that work for the industry or work for the regulators. What are these practices out there? There are practices that would deal with our assets. Those are the typical, how do we build them? What's the inspection practices? There's business and regulatory models out there on how the companies operate. There is culture that exists also out there, and communication practices. So I'm going to delve into those. So the question you're asking is, and that's a lot of what came out of the PG&E incident, was, do you really have confidence in those assets that are out there? And the programs that are presently available and the programs that are being developed by the companies as we move forward here is to give confidence in those assets out there. So it's a confidence that is, do you know what the inventory is? Do you know how they're doing their operations? Are they, seem like they're doing a good job on it? And the question of the integrity management. Are they really managing their information correctly, the assets, and also the decision support systems? You've heard some of that talk going on there. And then human resources, because those are the folks who really implement the thing. So that's the employees, the management, suppliers that work with the pipeline companies, and the professional support that's out there. The next question is, do you have confidence in the business and regulatory model? You heard some comments about rate recovery, who pays for these systems and so on like that, and who regulates the system. There's safety policies and practices. We implement these practices within the pipeline companies. The trade associations try to get folks together to work to come up with better practices that are more common, and then you've got the regulatory agencies on top. Key to understand, PHMSA directly regulates the interstate pipeline companies, but it is delegated to the state agencies for the intrastate. So understanding that and the confidence in those systems. And then there's the economic policy and practices. Are the companies actually set up in businesses, and is the economic policy set up to really encourage safe operating practices on that? Again, a difference between intrastate and interstate. And then there's a question of, do you have confidence in the culture? And there's a lot of different cultures out there. They have the individual companies that have developed cultures over the decades. You have an industry that pulls people together to merge those cultures, to improve the cultures out there. There's different associations that add value to it, the R&D organizations and stuff like that to work in there. There's also other industries out there that have different cultures, and we learn from those cultures. Bill Bird's doing a study for all the energy pipelines right now to figure out what the cultures are in those other industries, and is there something that is common within the energy pipeline industry that could be improved upon. And then the culture within the regulatory and legislative type environment and how that affects that thing. One thing we did look closely this year after we've been doing all these things, primarily through the regulatory acts, a big thing was the integrity management programs, which began in 2002, and we're gradually coming to the end of the baseline period on that. We decided to take a relook at things. The INGAA board established a pipeline safety task force at the beginning of the year, and it was composed of four main components on that. There was the integrity management continuous improvement. The acronym on that is IMCI. There was also the legislative side, and that Alex was talking some of the efforts that we're doing on that. Another key component was the economic regulatory action, which for us happens to be the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission that we work with, and then also stakeholder communication. The board thought it was very important to start with that, and then the second thing they said is, look, we're going to give directions to these folks to do it, so what are we going to do? Well, first we have to have some guiding principles. Alex articulated these principles to you earlier this morning. Andy Drake will follow up tomorrow on those sort of things, but that was sort of the cornerstone of what the principles are that INGAA was established and the main members of INGAA that operate. Board directors put their stamp on it and says that's how we're going to move forward. So at the end, when the board came through, they said we need to take a holistic approach, a relook at how we're doing things and see what we need to do that. And of course, a key component that was talked about earlier was reauthorizing the Pipeline Safety Act and using those guiding principles on how we push forward on the act. Looking at stronger state and federal excavation things, because it is the primary cause of serious pipeline safety accidents, not necessarily significant, again a jargon point, but when people get hurt on the accidents. And then within the industry, what we needed to do on R&D, lessons learned, and so on. So what we ended up formulating, that one group, is called IMCI, and these were the focus areas that we had in there that we thought were the key areas we needed to work on. And if you look at that list of focus areas, the groups that were working on that is very key components that have been talked about today. And we move forward on that. I do want to raise the hands of any executives in here that are working on IMCI. Okay, how about worker bees that are working on IMCI? It's a very extensive effort that we've gone on. We've put a lot of work into it. We've made several filings on this. The key action plans coming out of these work groups are listed up here. We've highlighted in yellow the ones that we think we want to push first to get to notice. And if you notice, the subject matters on risk management beyond high consequence areas, demonstrate fitness for service for pre-regulation pipes, and response time are echoing a lot of the comments that are going in there. And we're moving very aggressively on those positions. So what have we done? What we've done, I guess, is what Chris was talking about this morning, is that we are doing system think. We're pronouncing out to the public what we think are some of the possible solutions out there, and we're looking for feedback. We're hoping to get a dialogue among the folks around there that's in there. A lot of our information is posted up on our website on pipeline safety. We put a lot of work into putting some positions in the DOT Report to America. That's filed up on the PHMSA website, but we also do have a copy up on our website. We did make an initial policy filing to the PHMSA and PRM. That was about 2 weeks ago for the express purpose of getting that around, and we're trying to personally deliver copies of that so folks can read some of our positions on that and why we are going that way, expressly to solicit feedback. And plus, we want you to know where our companies are coming from. We do have a list of all our member companies, so you can see who they are, what they represent, and a key component is we're pushing very hard on our suppliers and contractors and service vendors out there to be involved in this process too, which are about 150 companies. So we're trying to be very aggressive on this and get some information out to the public and solicit feedback. So if you want any kind of personal contact on these things, we've got a lot of folks in the audience. They'll get you the right folks, but we certainly do want to have a dialogue on that. So thank you. By the way, we do have a single-page brochure that we're trying to change some of our communication methods. So I've got quite a few copies of this, and we'd like to solicit some feedback on that for a person who's actually near a pipeline. Keeping in mind that we're a transmission pipeline. We aren't normally in the neighborhood. We're not the local distribution company, so we have a different name. So we're trying to communicate with those folks on that kind of level rather than, say, Christina's level where they are actually billing and so on.